Mr. Naim Imran has joined the session, so I would like to welcome Naim. So I'll give a brief introduction about him. So Naim has more than 10 years of, I put that in the chat box, experience in supply chain worldwide. He has designed and implemented innovative, successful projects covering a broad spectrum, including living wage, social dialogue, industrial relation, gender empowerment, social compliance, occupational health and safety, access to market policy and resource. He has extensive expertise in research and stakeholders management. So Naim is currently working in Oxfam Australia Economic Justice Strategic Lead. And previously he worked in International Labour Organization and International Finance Corporation. Thank you, Naim, for being agreed to a guest lecture for us. And it's over to you.
Hello, and thank you, everybody. Can you hear me clearly? Fantastic. I've been listening to the previous lecture, very hardcore statistical theory, but we'll try and spend next half an hour in a lighter mode, and we will try and be interactive. So let's try and be interactive. So we have a presentation for you, and let me go through the presentation, and through the presentation, we'll try to be interactive. Please stop me, ask questions, and let's see where we go. So let me see if I have my slides up. I do have my slides up, but I need to share my screen first. Right. Okay. Can you see my screen? Great. Fantastic. So today we're going to talk about the cost of color. Before we go into that, for example, I'm wearing a jacket and a jeans, quite a few colors. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 colors, whatever I'm wearing today. What about anybody else? I think a single color t-shirt that you're wearing, red?
Yeah, I'm in red.
Okay, anybody else? I can't see anyone else.
Oh.
Black, blue, all single colors. Rifat, multiple colors? Great, wonderful. So we'll talk about colors today. This is even more colorful. Very bright, very vibrant, absolutely beautiful, isn't it? And when you go to the market, we see every season new dresses, new colors, bright and shiny and beautiful. Anyone can tell me the basic raw material of whatever we wear? I'm sure it's very simple. Anyone? What's the basic ingredient or very basic raw material of any clothing that we wear? Majority of them, not all of them, majority of them, about 90% or 90% plus. What's the basic raw material? Where it comes from?
Polyester.
Polyester, yes, nowadays polyester, but polyester would be about 10% nowadays, but where is the 90%? Polyester is cotton. Cotton. Who said cotton? Who said cotton? May I know the name, please? I couldn't see the person.
That was me. It's Aisha.
Aisha, great. Cotton. Have anyone been to a cotton field? Have anyone seen a cotton field? It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful when it blooms. This is what the cotton looks like when it is full bloom. So we have got cotton. It's a flower. And then what happens to this flower? What's the next step? Anybody knows? Anybody knows what happens to this cotton? How that is converted to a dress or whatever we're wearing? So what's the immediate next step from cotton? Any idea?
Harvesting it?
We convert cotton into?
No, we harvest the cotton first.
Yeah, we harvest the cotton, of course. And then we convert that cotton into?
Thread?
Beautiful, absolutely. So we convert them into yarn. In industrial term, we call it yarn or threads. That's all good. But obviously cotton is white. So when we convert this into threads or yarns, it's also white, right? But the dresses that we wear are all of beautiful color. So what happens to this?
Right.
We dye it, right? So we add color. We add color to this threads. Absolutely. But how do we do this? What's the process? How we add color to the yarn?
Explained.
The urine in
How you do that? Sorry.
submerge the urine in colored solutions.
Absolutely. I mean, you guys can do it. And where this water comes from? Sorry, where this water? Can you repeat that, please? I couldn't follow you. So there are mainly two sources of water that we use. Anybody can tell me what are the two main sources of water that we use for whatever purposes?
Rain.
Rain, and that rainwater is collected on river or a pond. So that's called surface water. So the water that we collect from river or pond or even from sea are called all surface water. But there's another source of water that's called underground water, where most of the irrigation and industrial water is actually taken from the underwater. So they bore a deep water tubule and they extract the water from the underground. So what happens is the industry, for the dyeing purposes, they take the water from underground. They don't use surface water because the underground water is much more purified. It is easier to use rather than the surface water because it's much more expensive to treat a surface water than an underground water because it's already filtered. So what they do, they mix the dye, the color, in the water, and then they dip the urine into that color to make it colorful. But when you do that process, you have to add a lot of other chemicals into the water so that the dye stick with the urine. If you do not add those chemicals, it will not stick. And these chemicals are very, very toxic. So basically what we're doing is that we are converting a white urine into a colored urine. Then what happens? So we have got urine, we have got colored urine. Then what we do? What's the next step? Anyone?
Weave them into clothes.
Fabric, we call it fabric. Yeah. So this is how we do it. So it's called, there are two ways of doing it. I'll not go into the technical details of that, but basically this is a knitting machine, automatic knitting machine, whereby the colored yarns are converted into fabric. That's okay. That's one way of doing things. But there's another way of doing it as well. The other way of doing it is we convert the cotton into yarn, which is white yarn. Then rather than coloring or dyeing the yarn, we make a fabric itself with the white yarn. This is called white fabric, or generally they call it, the name is called gray fabric because it's not exactly white. It's a bit of a gray color, but you have seen that they have converted this into fabric without adding dye to it, right? Then what they do, they do add dye to it. So which means that rather than adding color to the yarn, we are adding color to the fabric, but we are getting the same result at the end, same process, same thing happening. And this is denim dyeing, which is the jeans that we wear. This is again the white denim converted into blue denim, adding color to it. Now, this is again another dyeing factory. In this photo, do you notice anything interesting? Anybody can notice anything interesting about this photo? This is a dyeing process of fabric, where they're washing the fabric in a washing machine. It's one of the processes.
So the PPE they're wearing.
Absolutely. You guys are great. I've spoken to so many industries. You guys are good. So the amount of PPE that these guys are using can give an indication how toxic this water is, because they're just touching fabric. If you see, it's a very simple process. They're just touching fabric and there's water. But this is so much of toxicity involved that they have to use quite a few PPE to protect their hands, eyes, and nose and things like that. And I'll come to this later. I just wanted to show you this photo. And we need to understand the water contains heavy metal and very toxic chemical. Now what happened? Oh, I've gone past one slide. Anyway, what happens to that fabric? This fabric goes to a garment factory. where millions and millions of workers, they use sewing machines and cutting machines to cut this fabric to make t-shirts, shirts, dresses, and whatever. So if that happens, this is a plain basic t-shirt, right? Some of us are wearing it, and that these are made in millions of pieces, and we get them in $10 and $15 at Kmart's and whatever not. But some of them do have prints on it, right? Anybody knows how this plain t-shirt can have these different prints on them? Anybody have seen the process of how that happens? Any idea? How we add print or
Screen printing?
screen printing? Have you seen screen printing process? Who's this? Sorry.
I have seen the process.
Where?
Even designing your own shirts and things.
Is it a commercial operation or an individual out of interest?
Just in art and that with schools.
Okay, great, good. So you must have seen something like this?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a screen printing process. So the point I wanted to make is that, again, the color is used to use the printing, and you can see that this is a particular process where even after you make the t-shirt or a shirt, you use color or you add color to do the printing. Is that the end of the adding color to your dresses? Or use of water and chemical? Any other process? So it's all finished. We started from cotton, we converted this into yarn, into fabric, did cutting and making, did the printing. It's ready to ship and buy, or is there any other process involved which uses chemical and water? Any idea?
But still, they need to fix it with something and make it water resistant so you can put it through a washing machine. So they do use some of the process.
Absolutely. Where is that photo? There's supposed to be a photo somewhere. Okay, I missed that photo. I put that photo in. I don't know where it is. Yes, but you're absolutely right. What happens is that these dresses goes to a washing plant where they're washed again before they are packed and shipped. So there's another huge washing processes involved. Now the question is that what happens to this water? So this water that you've used into the entire production, we have used color, you've used chemicals, very toxic chemicals. We have used this water to dye the fabric or the yarn or to do printing. And then what happens to this water? Anybody knows what happens to this water? So this water, by legislation, is supposed to go through what we call a water treatment plant. So what it does is that it is supposed to take out the toxic elements from the water and then discharge the water into the surface. But when they're discharging water to the surface, they're not taking out the color. They're supposed to reduce the toxic content of the water, but not the color of the water. So basically what they're discharging is colored water. That's point number one. Point number two, in most cases, they don't even treat the water because water treatment is expensive. And the countries where these dyeings are happening, the regulatory bodies are very weak. So in most of the cases, these water plants are non-functional and they just discharge the untreated water into the surface. That's the second problem. The third problem is whenever you treat the water, there is a byproduct. The name of this byproduct is called sludge. So once you treat the water, even if you treat the water in a treatment plant, as an outcome or as a byproduct, you will get this sludge. And this sludge is even more toxic because it concentrates heavy metal and other metal. There is, I can talk about sludge management maybe if I have time later, but there is still not a very established process in terms of how you actually manage this toxic sludge. And the regulation is also pretty weak in terms of sludge disposal and management. So in most of the cases, this sludge goes into landfill. But once you do use large in landfill, you cannot use that land for anything else for about next 500 years or so, because it gets so toxic. You cannot use that land. Apart from, you can probably construct a house on top of it. But apart from that, anything that you grow will have that heavy metal. If you grow something, if you put a topsoil on top of it and try and grow something, you can, but that will contain heavy metal into that vegetable or whatever you grow. So that land is absolutely not usable for many years to come. Now, we have spoken about quite an issue. So this is a photo, a real photo of, you can see the colored water, black colored water getting discharged into the surface. Water taken out from the underground and discharged into the surface. And as I said, most of it, about 80 to 90% of is non-treated, which means it does contain the chemical that it contains. Now, obviously, it has a huge environmental impact. But this is not a class about environmental impact. It's a class of epidemiologists. So I'm not going to talk about the environmental side of it. That is for students of a different discipline, I guess. This is another photo, and these are happening in countries like China, Vietnam, Cambodia, Bangladesh, Pakistan, China, Turkey, wherever these dyeing factories are in numbers. So this is another photo. You can see that blue water and the pink water being discharged into the water bodies. So what's the problem with that? What's the problem of discharging colored water into the water bodies? Obviously, the one, okay, let's hear from you guys.
Just going to say it's toxic to the environment, so you're going to wipe out all the wildlife and flora along the river system there, and all the drainage into other areas too, water basins.
Absolutely. So it kills the entire biodiversity. Absolutely. No fish, no biodiversity, nothing can grow into this water because of this toxicity into the water bodies. What else? So that is about the environment that it
Poisons
damages.
people.
How?
Dangerous to humans.
How it impacts people.
That could be their drinking water, their washing water, their cleaning their vegetable water. So they actually poison themselves.
So I don't need to continue the class anymore, I guess. You have answered it. Yes, absolutely, that's the case. So there are more photos. The photo that you see, the black one, is a photo from the river Buriganga. Just give me a second. So this is it's in the dry season. This is actually a photo taken, I think, a couple of years back. This is a river water, which is flowing next to the capital Dhaka. And this is the color of that water from the river. And it's quite a big river. And then another photo. But the issue is, as you correctly mentioned, do you have more photos of this? These are more photos. So the photo on the right tells you that whenever there is a flood happens, and you know in these countries, flood is pretty common. And these industries are located where many in neighborhoods where people live as well. It's not an industrial belt where only industry are there. So whenever there is a flood or whenever there's a rain, this colored water actually gets into people's household. That gets into impact people's life. Even if they're not using it for drinking water, even if they're not using it for any other purposes, just by the rain or because of the flood, they get affected. These are some of the photos to show you how the colored waters are entering into house. So you see one lady, and I think it's the one is in Vietnam or in Cambodia. I forgot where this photo was taken, but I can see that lady is walking and in colored water, the other one. So even if they're not using any water for whatever purposes, they're still affected by this toxic water. And obviously you can see they're washing clothes in this toxic water because in a number of countries, they do not have access to fresh drinking water or other water sources, and they're dependent on this water sources, and that's why they're doing it. The other one, you can see a rickshaw puller walking, and you can see the color clearly colored. On the left, you can see someone washing vegetables. So which means that this is important. They're using this water for irrigation as well. And there has been evidence where heavy metal found in grains, because the irrigation water was used from these canals and rivers, which has toxic waste into it. So you use this water for irrigation, and that metal or toxicity actually goes into your food grain or the vegetable that we eat. So that is how even somebody who's nowhere near to this toxicity and buying a vegetable far away can get impacted without having any idea that the person is consuming heavy metal. And you can search up and see it is how dangerous it is to human body. And even you may feel that you're buying a vegetable from a fresh market and having it without having any idea, or buying rice and cooking it without simply having any idea how you're impacted. So it's not necessarily the people living in that community are impacted. It is a wider community is impacted. Even internationally, it's impacted. It may get exported. And the photo on the right is obviously women collecting water from the same dirty water. I can share you all these studies if you want in terms of where they found heavy metal and all that. But I think that's for us. And obviously, kids are taking bath. And I don't have to tell you that this can lead to skin diseases and all kinds of health problems because they're using or taking bath into this. So I'm not going to go into the detail of that. These are all kinds of effects human body do have or has been proven. And there are quite a few research or work has been done in terms of the impact of textile dye on human body, whether you're a worker, you are somebody close staying nearby, or you consuming it. So huge. So I'm not going to go into that detail, just to let you know that your nervous system, liver, kidney, skin, and then the human chromosomes, everything gets impacted. Reproductive system gets impacted due to your exposure to this toxic waste. So do we actually know the true cost of this? Let's forget about environment. Environment discussion is a completely different conversation, just on human health. To know that, anybody take a guess? So to process 1 ton of fabric, how much water is being used? Take a guess, 50, 100, 150, 200 tons. Take a guess, anybody? Sorry, I can't hear you. So you're on mute. Carl? You're still on mute, unfortunately. Yeah, you're.
Yeah, I said C, 150.
150. Anyone else? Rifat?
200.
200. Was that 200?
Sandia.
200.
200. Yeah, 200 it is. It takes about 200 tons of water to process 1 ton of fabric. Let's see some other facts. So jeans, denim jeans that we wear. Any idea how much water is used on one pair of jeans that we are wearing? The one I'm wearing actually now. Take a guess. Benjamin?
I'll go with the 9,500 liters.
Okay. Anyone else? Zul, Christy, Casey, anyone else? Take a guess.
I'll go C, 8,500.
Okay, so you've got 2 guesses. One more. Dr. Alif, would you like to take a guess?
Yep, 8,500 maybe.
No, it is 9,500 liters. Let's take one more, and then we'll go into the other discussion. How many clothes do we buy? And we means Australians. This is a figure from Australian government. So I didn't make up the figure. I can give you the exact reference. This is a study done by Australian government or an Australian agency owned by the government. So take a guess. For us, Australian, this is not a global average. This is an Australian average.
B.
Which one? Sorry, unfortunately, your voice is breaking up.
I said D, go for 56.
D. Curl D. Anybody else?
D.
Sandra? D. Wow. Anyone else? Christy?
39.
39. No, it is 56 actually. I realized that I ended up giving D all the right answers. I should have mixed and matched a little bit. Yes, it is D. So we use about 56 clothes per year. And this is I'm not sure about this statement because I found it in one or two studies, but I've seen other studies which mentions other industries. But the point is that it is creating the dyeing process is very toxic and it pollutes water. And one study claims that it's the second largest in the world. On an average, we wear a garment 7 times before throwing it away. And this is because of the introduction of fast fashion. Today, I'm not going to talk to you about fast fashion and its history. Some other day, if we have opportunity, we're going to talk about fast fashion. So we've talked about the issue. We have talked about the water users. Let's talk about a little bit about the solution. What is missing in this particular field is we have a lot of information and data and its economic impact on environment. So we know that this toxic water is doing harm to the environment and what is the economic value of that? It's huge. What has not been done, even the study has been done, the impact on human health. However, the study that has not been done yet is that what is the total health impact and what is the cost of it, the health cost of it. So that data is still not, that study has still not been done at a macro scale to figure out that exactly what is the cost, economic cost of this toxic waste on human health. The second is legislation. Obviously, there are legislations, but the legislations are very weak, and we need much tighter legislation to make sure that our human health and environment are protected from this toxic. Obviously, there are advanced technology in terms of processing. I don't want to go into the detail. These are more technical things, but there are technology in terms of improving processes, improving the water treatment itself, the chemical that we use with the water, how we can have more environment-friendly chemicals, which are much more expensive than the current chemical that we use today. And obviously how we manage the sludge. So there are technological, because in sludge management, they are talking about using the sludge to convert them into bricks. They are trying to use this sludge to actually filter some of the toxicity from arsenic. So I'm not going to go into the detail of that. These are innovative work that's going on. A lot of work needs to be done to increase awareness and customer choices and monitoring and reporting. All these solutions, all these strategies that I've been talking about, this has been very successful to make a change, a paradigm shift into another industry. The same thing, data analysis, legislation, technology, awareness, monitoring, and reporting. Anyone can refer to any other industry which has applied these all these steps to make quite a big shift in Australia and globally as well. Industry which seems to be very normal. Everybody used to use it very frequently. It was fashion. It was a style to do it. And now things has changed in the last 10 years because of all these steps that the industry or the practitioners like you have taken, the health practitioners, the epidemiologists, the health economists, and people like us, the advocates. Example, any other
health?
digital?
Digital health.
Digital health. Okay, anyone, anything? No, the
I
idea
was
is that
gonna say carbon emissions with petrol.
Yes, absolutely, yes, that's one. Absolutely, I agree to that. The one I picked up is smoking. Once smoking was something, a style. Sorry. Is there somebody wanted to make a comment or a statement?
I think there's a background noise.
Okay, so the entire tobacco industry has gone through this process. Once upon a time, it was a style. Nobody really realized its impact. Lots of study being done to understand its health impact and the economic cost of this health impact. As a result of that, they realized that the benefit, the tax that the government gets from this tobacco industry is way less than the burden on people to manage cancer and all other health related problem that is caused by by cigarettes. So there is huge tax on cigarettes in Australia. New technology has come up to help people to not to smoke. Awareness building the vaping has been introduced as another big thing, debate going on about vaping is good or bad or whatever. I'm not going to get into that debate, but the issue is that they have used this similar type of strategy, awareness building, legislation, all that strategy to really have an impact in this industry and many other industry. So I'll end here, but before I end here, I'll open up for questions. But even before that, I'm going to request you something very different today. I'll request all of you, if you have time, to go to this Oxfam website, or you Google what she makes into your Google search. It will take you to this page, and I'll request you to sign the pledge.